4.1, we're going to be determining slope and y-intercept. Now this lesson is going to be very, very, hopefully very, very simple. We're not really going to be doing any math. We're just going to be learning the different parts of this specific linear equation. So a linear equation is just like what we saw in the warm-up. Y is equal to 2x. It was an equation with ordered pairs for solutions that form a straight line when graphed. Just like we saw, this linear equation had a bunch of ordered pairs that we figured out just by plugging our x values in. Once we plotted all those ordered pairs on our graph, we got a nice straight line. So that was a very simple linear equation there. Y is equal to 2x. We're going to get a little bit more complicated as we go throughout, but we'll start off nice and simple. So linear equations are going to be written in this format. This is going to be nice and big here. Y is equal to mx plus b. Now this is a really difficult equation for us to memorize at first because it's just straight up all letters, 4 different letters. Okay. And in this equation, we're going to go ahead and take one color of our highlighters, and we're going to highlight the M. And we're going to take our other color highlighter, and we're going to highlight the B. Doesn't matter which color's which as long as we keep it consistent throughout the lesson. Anyone remember what the letter M represents in this unit?
Multiply.
Multiply, that's a great guess.
Oh.
Not quite. I'll give you a hint, it doesn't start with an M. It represents something that starts with an S. Take a look at the title of our lesson. Slope, right? M is equal to rise over run. M is equal to change in Y over change in X. Hopefully it wasn't that long of a weekend. We remember M represents our slope of a line. And B is going to represent something, once again, that does not start with a B. B is going to represent our Y-intercept. It's called our Y-intercept. Has anyone ever heard this term intercept before somewhere? Yeah, Osase, where'd you hear intercept before? Football. Good. Anyone heard of an interception in football? What does an interception look like in football, Kamani?
The other team steals the ball from the other team.
Exactly, when the other team steals the ball from the other team, right? So let's say me and Saeed, right? I'm throwing the football over to Saeed across the room. Ida jumps right in the middle of it and takes that ball away, right? That would be an interception. So this B value here is the point in which we intercept or cross the y-axis. And we'll see what that looks like right now. Well, not right now, but in a little bit. So y is equal to mx plus b. This is going to be our best friend for the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's going to come up in every math class you take from here on out. So this will be our nice first little introduction to it. And you know me, I like to use phrases that will stick in our brains to remember certain things. And this was the phrase that I learned when I was a 7th grade math student here from Mr. Summerfield, if any of you know Mr. Summerfield. We're going to use the phrase, it's YMXB. We're going to remember this phrase, yo mama's ex-boyfriend. Okay, we're going to go ahead and write that in. Yo mama's ex-boyfriend. You may be wondering why all these phrases have to do with exes. It's because nothing else starts with X. So that's just what it is. And it's easy to remember. Y-M-X-B. It's always the order of this equation that confuses students. So if we can just remember about yo mama's ex-boyfriend, we can take the first letter of each of those words, and that's the order our equation goes in. Y is equal to mx plus b. Everybody say that out loud. Yo mama's ex-boyfriend. Say it with some heart. Yo mama's ex-boyfriend. Okay, that's all right. I know it's early. We don't have the yo mama's ex-boyfriend energy yet, but you will. You will. Don't worry. You may find it silly, but you will remember it that way. It's a lot easier than remembering y is equal to mx plus b, right? At least it's something that's catchy in a way, unfortunately. So, now that we've got yo mama's ex-boyfriend out of the way, let's figure out what exactly is a Y-intercept. And I know that yo mama's ex-boyfriend is going to stick in your head because I learned it 15 or so years ago, and I still remember it from my teachers, so I'm passing that along to you. Hopefully you never forget that. So the Y-intercept is the point in which a graphed line crosses the y-axis. The point in which a graphed line crosses the y-axis. Yes, sir. Sure. Just take the pink pass. The point in which a graph line crosses the y-axis. Just to show you an example of what I'm talking about. We're not going to put this in our notes necessarily, but if we were looking at this graphed line here, right? Which axis on this graph is my y-axis? Is it this horizontal line or this vertical line? Vertical line, that's my y-axis, right? Right there, highlighted in orange. So if we zoom in here, at which point does this diagonal line cross this orange line? What number does it cross at?
3.
3, right? Right here is the intersection or the intercept of this line to the y-axis. You can think of it kind of like we talked about before with the pirate. X marks the spot, right? Our graphed line and the y-axis are going to form an X. And at this point right here, our B is equal to 3. So this isn't something we have to write down. I'm just showing you guys what I'm talking about when I say that it intersects or intercepts the y-axis right there. Think about it. Down here is your quarterback. For those of us that are football fans, down here is your quarterback. Up here is your receiver, right? And you're throwing this football on this slanted line. And then boom,
Touchdown.
what are the people called that make interceptions? Defensive backs? No.
No.
Corner? No. Safety? I don't know.
Yeah.
Your defense, whatever. Defense is right here. Boom, they make the interception as that ball's being thrown over to your receiver. So you can kind of think of it like that, right? Intercept, boom, right there at the 3-yard line. Okay. So, today, like I said, it's going to be very simple. All we're going to figure out is what number is my slope, or m, And what number is my y-intercept, also known as b? Okay, turn that down a little bit. My bad. For example, we're going to determine the slope and y-intercept of the linear equations below. And this is what worksheet 16, our homework, should say classwork. We're definitely going to be able to finish it before we leave today. This is what our classwork is going to look like here. So, example number 1. Let's say we have the equation y is equal to 3x plus 1. I'm going to zoom in here. Y is equal to 3x plus 1. Remember, today is all about just getting familiar with the format of this formula. So with our highlighters, whatever highlighter color you used for your M, I used yellow. All right? We're going to go ahead and find the slope of this line here. Y is equal to 3x plus 1. Now, if we remember our formula, yo, mama's x, boyfriend, mama is our slope, right? And our slope is always going to come right before our x. So we're going to have some number in front of the x, some number being added or subtracted to the end of our x. And those numbers are going to be our slope and our y-intercept. It's almost so simple, it's kind of hard to explain, right? So what number comes right in front of our x in number 1? 3. So in your first color, you're going to highlight the 3. That's our value of m. And what number is getting added to the end of our x here? So I say you're writing this down, right? 1. So in our second color, we're going to highlight that 1. That's going to be our b value or our y-intercept. So we could say m is equal to what number?
3.
3. And we could say that b is equal to what number? 1. For today, that's all we're going to have to do, is identify what number is m, what number is b. And as we go through this week, we're going to build and build and build on that until we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Yes, sir?
That's going to be our homework.
That's right. Figure out what number's m, figure out what number's b. Some of you may be thinking, sounds a little bit too easy. What's the catch? Today there is none. I mean, there's a couple equations that we'll look at in our notes here that are different looking than this, but we'll start out with this form. Let's do a second example. Let's say y is equal to negative 2x minus 4. Negative 2x minus 4. With your first colored highlighter, you're going to locate your m. Which number in this equation would you say is my m here?
2x.
Good, I'm glad you brought that up. We're just looking for the number. X is just x, right? Each of these four letters are their own thing. Y, M, X, and B. The slope is only that number that comes in front of the x, but it doesn't include the x itself. So what would our slope be here?
2.
Negative 2. Take a look at the whole number that comes in front. Can our slope be negative? Absolutely. It just looks downhill from left to right, like we talked about. So m is equal to negative 2. Anyone want to take a guess at what my b would be equal to here?
4.
Negative 4. Good. B is equal to, bless you, negative 4. B is equal to. Said B, but that's okay. So, real quick, the reason why we brought this example up is these negatives, right? In our formula, mx is being added to b plus b. So if we see that our b value here is being subtracted, well, that just means we have a negative y-intercept. And that would look like a straight line crossing at the value of negative 4 on the y-axis, like that. B is equal to negative 4 right there. We're not going to worry too much about what the graphs look like. That'll be later on in the week, but just wanted to show you that not only can our slope be negative, but our y-intercept can also be negative. Quick show of thumbs for understanding kind of what I'm talking about. Finding M, finding B, thumbs up if you're like, this makes sense, super easy. Them sideways if it's still a little confusing. Okay, I appreciate those of you who are with me. I see some heads down. Hopefully you are watching these videos at home. Let's do another example. Let's do y is equal to 1/2 x. Good, yes, absolutely. I'll come to you in just 1 second. So with your first highlighter, what number comes in front of our x here? 1/2. Not just 1, not just 2. It's the whole fraction of 1/2. So m is equal to 1/2. And like we saw last week, we can also have a fraction as a slope. It's just going to be leaning more towards the horizontal line than a vertical line. Does it look like we have a b here at all? No, there's no number being added on the end. That doesn't exactly fit our formula here. So if there is no number there, Devin, what do you think we're adding to the end of that? Very close. A 0, right? If it was a 1, we would see the 1. But if there is no number, we could say that we're adding 0. So my b value or my y-intercept here will be what? 0. Good. And this is the formula that we've already talked about. Y is equal to kx, where k represents the constant of proportionality. So hopefully you see that connection there. If our y-intercept is at 0, that means that we are crossing through the origin. Here's my y-axis. There is 0 on the y-axis. So if we're crossing through that origin, what type of relationship do we have here? Proportional relationship, exactly. So that's why we see, oh, y is equal to kx. K is basically just the same thing as m, except it's reserved only for proportional relationships, like this one. So if you don't see a number being added on the end, your b value is equal to 0. Bless you. Let's see what else we got. Let's do y is equal to x plus 5. Y is equal to x plus 5. I'm going to move this up. We're going to determine what our m is equal to and what our b is equal to. So remember, m is the number that we see in front of our x, right? But I don't see a number in front of my x. Anyone got any ideas on what our slope here might be? Yeah, Namapreet? 0? That's a really good guess. If we just, 1, right? If we just have an x all by itself, it's got that invisible 1 as an exponent, but it's also got that invisible 1 right in front of it, right? If there's only one single x there, it's 1x. So this is where we have to make sure we understand the distinction. When we don't see a number added on the end, it's 0. But if we don't see a number in front of our x, it's 1. So that can be a little confusing. Hopefully you understand or see why that's the case. So m is equal to 1. What's my b equal to here? 5, right? Nice and simple. It's just being added on the end, that little 5 right there. Let's do one last example. Y is equal to 6. This one looks really weird. Not only do we not see a number in front of our x, I don't see an x at all. Y is equal to 6. So let's think about this for a second. If we're trying to find m, we just look for the number directly in front of x. Now here we had an x with no number in front, so we know that that number is actually 1. But here I don't see an x at all. So here's what we're going to do. We can rewrite this as y is equal to 0x plus 6. What would 0x be equal to? If we multiply x by 0, what is that? Just 0, right? And 0 plus 6 would just give us that 6. So whenever you see y is equal to a number, your brain should instantly know that our slope here is going to be what? 0. It's the number right in front of our x. We'll go ahead and highlight it. If we don't see an x at all, that means we have a slope of 0. What's my y-intercept here? What's my b value? 6. B is equal to positive 6. So that pretty much goes through all of the different types of linear equations you're going to see on the worksheet and in the rest of this unit. Like I always say with our notebook, use this as reference. When you're going through the worksheet and you see something that doesn't look exactly like our formula here, with a clearly defined number in front of the x and a clearly defined number being added or subtracted on the end, refer back to these 5 examples. Question? Sure. In example 1, we had a positive slope with a positive y-intercept. In example 2, we had a negative slope with a negative y-intercept. In number 3, we had a fractional slope with a y-intercept of 0. In number 4, we had a slope, an invisible slope of 1. And in example 5, we had a slope of 0, no x at all, with that positive y-intercept. So that covers every different type of equation you're going to see. So before you raise your hand and ask me, Mr. Church, what's going on with this? This doesn't look right. Take a look through your notes. They will be able to help you out. I promise. Okay? Don't put your highlighters away just, well, you have nowhere to put them anyway. I'll come around with the supply boxes once you guys get started on the worksheet. But let's quickly take a look at what we're going to be doing. Good morning, Gia. Worksheet 16. You're going to use your highlighters on this. Thank you. You will be using your highlighters on this worksheet. Okay, I don't want to see anyone's worksheet turned in without our M highlighted in one color and our B highlighted in another color. So we'll get this in a second. But if we take a look at number 1, y is equal to 2x. Actually, I'm going to get it to you real quick, just so you can do this with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. All right, so take a look at number 1. Y is equal to 2x plus 5. What's my value for M? What is my slope here going to be? Well, what number comes in front of my x? 2. So we're going to highlight that. We're going to highlight that 2. And we're going to say M is equal to 2. What's my y-intercept, or value of b, that's being added on to the end of this? 5, right? 5 right there. B is equal to 5. That's all you need to do on worksheet 16. Highlight the M and identify it. Highlight the B and identify it. Now in number 2, this is exactly like example number 3 that we saw. What's my slope here in number 2? Okay, the slope's always going to be a number. 3, right? It's the only number we see. It comes right in front of x. So M is equal to 3. But what's my B going to be here? Take a look at your examples. 0. Okay, examples 3 and 4. Very important distinctions between the two. Okay. 3x plus 0. We're going to highlight that 0. And we'll write b is equal to 0. I do want you to add the plus 0 on the end of that equation, just so we have something to highlight. And we'll go through it just like that. And tomorrow we'll bring back the tables that we saw in the warm-up. Wednesday we'll bring up the graphs, all that good stuff. Or maybe tomorrow's the graphs too. Yeah, we're going to be graphing tomorrow, and then we'll graph on Wednesday as well.